I begin tonight with sadly some tragic news. We just heard that one of our Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Glickman, passed away suddenly about an hour ago. Rabbi Glickman was an enormous Torah scholar, someone who spanned fields and disciplines in business, in finance, in philosophy, in thought. Most of all, he was a devoted teacher. He loved his students. He loved all the students of Yeshiva University. And he devoted so much of his energy, his time, his passion to you, to the wonderful students here. His loss is a tremendous tragedy. A tragedy to Yeshiva University, and a tragedy to the Jewish people. You know, and this, in some sense, I think even could relate to what I want to talk about tonight. Thinking about how brief our time is on this earth. To what is it that we are supposed to devote our days? What is it that Hashem wants from us? How are we to focus our time? To what do we concern ourselves and devote our days? The shiur that I have to talk to you about, Talmud Gadol or Maaseh Gadol, relates to this fundamental question by dealing with one of the great questions that is asked by our rabbinic sages. If you look at source number 1, the Gemara tells the story, Ukvar haya Rabbi Tarfon uzikena mesubim balit Beit belud, that Rabbi Tarfon and the elders were sitting around the attic of Beit in Lud. Nishala sheila zo bifnehem, Talmud Gadol o Maaseh Gadol. A great question, a question arose in front of them. What is greater? Is Talmud greater or Maaseh greater? What does Maaseh mean in this context? What's greater? Action. So what type of actions is the Gemara talking about? Mitzvot. So what's greater? Is it the study of Torah, the study of mitzvot that is greater? Or is it the doing of the mitzvot that is greater? Nana Rabbi Tarfon v'amar Maaseh Gadol. Nana Rabbi Kiva v'amar Talmud Gadol. Rabbi Tarfon answered and said, doing is greater, actions are greater, mitzvot are greater. Rabbi Kiva said, no, study is greater. Nana kulam v'amru Talmud Gadol, sher Talmud mevi lidei maaseh. And then they all answered together in unison that Talmud is greater, for Talmud mevi lidei maaseh. What does it mean, Talmud mevi lidei maaseh? What would you say? What does that mean?
That it leads, that by learning about the mitzvot, it's going to lead you to do those mitzvot.
So what exactly does that mean, thank you? That Talmud, that study leads to the mitzvot. In what way does study lead to mitzvot? What would you say? In what way does study lead to mitzvot? Yeah.
I think you could say either that you know more, so you know what to do, or you could say that you're more inspired to do because you feel more of ownership over it.
Yeah, fair. Very nice. So one layer, which is the one that people generally think about, is that you have to know what to do before you're able to do it. Right? Talmud mevi lidei maaseh, you have to first know what to do and then you'll be able to do it. But the next layer, which only the more refined thinkers think about, is that Talmud is greater not just because you have to know what to do before you know what to, practically what you're supposed to do, but it inspires you, right? It inspires you to do it by studying. You know, said a little differently, if you turn to the Meiri, found in source number 9, the Meiri says, in the second line, "Shetalmud miafeh et ha'maaseh umashlimmo והמצווה מהודרת יותר כשיצאת מפי היודע עניינה. It's not just that Talmud leads to Maaseh, it's even a little more than just inspires the Maaseh, but the Talmud makes your Maaseh more meaningful, for you understand it. It's one thing when you're taught what to do, and you do it because that's what your parents told you to do. And you do it by rote, you saw them do it, so you do it as well. But it's another when you understand the meaning and the purpose behind it, so that changes the very practice, it changes the very act of how you do it in the first place. Another opinion I heard from a taxi driver in Israel. You know, it's very often that rabbis go to Israel, and they come back, and when they speak to their students or kilot, they come back with stories about taxi drivers. Now, why is it that American rabbis come back with stories about taxi drivers? You know that? Why is that? 'Cause that's generally the Israelis that they tend to see. Now, I have lived in Israel for 10 years. So I have not seen a taxi driver because I drive my own car. So for 10 years, I've been bereft of taxi cab driver stories. But just a couple months ago, I was fortunate to return to Israel as an American rabbi. And thus, I once again had a taxi cab driver. And what I found is that they still have much wisdom. So I was in the taxi with this driver, Bali Kippah, he was without a yarmulke. And he says to me, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm giving these shiurim, I'm going to the Midrashot, I'm going to the Yeshivot." He said, "Well, what's the topic that you're talking about?" I said, "Well, one of the things I'm talking about is this issue of Talmud Gadol, Maaseh Gadol. Talmud Gadol, Talmud Mevi Lidei Maaseh." He goes, yeah. And then he gives me more sources that I should look up. Tells me more things to think about. And he said, "For me, it's pashut. I understand when this is true." I said, "How? What's the explanation?" He said, "I know, I drive many of the Midrashot, the Talmidot and the Midrashot and the Talmidim of the Yeshivot. I drive them regularly. And I can tell which place is a place that learns seriously and which place doesn't learn seriously." I said, how can you tell that? He said, "I can tell by the way they treat me. Those that act to me with derech eretz, they're the ones that learn seriously. Those that are makbid about my time, that call me and say you'll be there, and then they're there at that time, don't cancel on last second, treat me properly those are the people, they learn seriously." Because Talmud study is not just important for the content, for the mitzvah that you're actually studying, but the whole study, the process of study is transformative. It shapes one's character and one's being. Talmud Mevi Lidei Maaseh, he said, meant that you become a person who lives a life of mitzvot and derech eretz in an elevated way. I said, "That's really amazing. Do you mind if I quote you?" He said, "Quote me, give them my phone number." So when you're in Israel next, go to Tzion. Go to Tzion and tell him, you all traveled with him. You should know that I've quoted Tzion often with this. And on the way back from the airport, Tzion picked me up, or the way to the airport, he picked me up, he said, "I heard you've been quoting me all over the place." I'm like, "How do you know?" He goes, "Right after you quote me, people text me and tell them that I'm quoting him. So text Tzion and tell him, you all have his number, and tell him you heard a great Perush on the Gemara of Talmud Mevi Lidei Maaseh." Okay. So if we stop right here, there's a very clear orientation in this Gemara, where of the two, Talmud and Maaseh, which is greater? Talmud. Okay, very clear in the Gemara. Okay. The problem is, if you look at another Gemara, it seems like it's not so pashut. Look at source number 5. Look at source number 5. Okay, and source number 5 is the Gemara in Baba Kama. It's not source number 5, I'm sorry. It's source number 3. It's the Gemara in Baba Kama, which deals with seems like it deals with the same statement, but it treats it in a very different way. Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis learn. Ukavod asulo b'moto zeh Chizkiya melech Yehuda. The psukim in Divrei Yamim say that when Chizkiya, the king of Yehuda, died, he was treated with a great kavod. He was given enormous respect at his funeral. And the Gemara wonders, what does it mean that he was treated with such a great kavod? So sheyatza lefanav 36,000 chalutei ketef divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says what it means is 36,000 people tore kriya. 36,000 people bared their shoulders. That was the great kavod. There was a mass mourning done to Chizkiya. Amlei Reb Nechemya, v'halo lifnei Achav asuchein. That can't be the great kavod, because even for Achav, a wicked king, they also had such a mass mourning. So that can't be what the pasuk is referring to. So what's it referring to? El sheinicho sefer Torah al mitato, v'amru ki em zeh ma shekatuv bazeh. You know what it is? What happened is that at his funeral, they brought out a Sefer Torah to his funeral, and they said that he fulfilled what was written in this book. What was the great kavod that was done to Chizkiya? The great kavod is that they said that his life was like a walking Sefer Torah. We've only said that to Chizkiya. Special kavod by Chizkiya. We don't do that anybody else. Special kavod to Chizkiya Melech Yehuda. So the Gemara asks, I don't understand. Today, in our generation, certainly many years later, Namaram are speaking, in our generation, we also bring a Sefer Torah out to the funeral. Why is this such a great kavod? So the Gemara gives 3 answers. The first answer is, Afuke mafkinan, anuche lo manchinan. You know what we do? We take out the Sefer Torah. But for Chizkiya, they placed the Sefer Torah on his coffin. It was a super special kavod. They placed it on his coffin and said, he fulfilled what was written in this. We don't place it on the coffin, we just take it out. That's the kavod for Chizkiya. V'ba'etema, anuchenami manchinan, ki em lo amrinan. Another way, another explanation, we also put the Torah down on the coffin, but we don't say the special phrase that he fulfilled what was written in this book. Those are 2 answers. Now, the key for us is going to be the 3rd answer. So let's look at the 3rd answer. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana. Rabba bar bar Chana said, "Azilna bahade de Rabbi Yochanan mishal shmaitza." I was walking with Rabbi Yochanan to ask him about this teaching. Ki avi ayel lebeit kisei, v'avi beina minei milta, lo pashadlan adamashi yadeh umanach tefillin umavarech. He went to the restroom. I asked him the matter. He did not answer me until he washed his hands, put on his tefillin and made a bracha on his tefillin, and then v'hada armal, and then he answered me, afilo kiem amrinan limed lo amrinan. You know what the difference is? Today, we also say that he fulfilled. Today, we say that we take the Torah out, we put it on the coffin, and we say, this person fulfilled what was written in this book. But you know what the special kavod for Chizkiya is? Not only do we say that he fulfilled what was written, we said that he studied what was written. He studied what was written in this book. That was the special kavod. So the Gemara asks, V'amamar gadol Talmud Torah, she'Talmud maybe lidei ma'aseh. How great is the study of Torah that the study leads to action? What's the question the Gemara is asking? What's the question it's asking? Yeah.
When you say it's a greater honor that he studied, but don't we already say that action is greater than the study is greater than action? So obviously the study is doing action.
Okay, say that again one more time. Again.
Sorry.
No, again.
If we're saying that he, his great things that he studied and did the action, shouldn't we assume since he's doing the actions to be studied, since we know that studying means action?
Okay, so excellent. So one way of saying it is, if studying leads to action, what is the special chiddush? You're saying to him, we say that he studied, but even for us, if we say that he fulfilled it, that must mean by definition that he also studied it. Right? That's what you're, okay? That's one way of saying that's Tosfos, but there's another way. Yes, Julie. Can you tell Ari that there's the beginning part from the last email? You should remember. Yeah.
If you're saying that Talmud is maybe the Beit, that the main point of the statement is the fact that it actually gets the person to do something. So then the main part is not the fact that they're learning, it's the fact that it is a result of their learning actually.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so let's start with that. So if you look at Rashi, Rashi says in the Gemara in Baba Kama that Rashi in source number 4, Talmud maybe lidei maisa, Alma, what's more important? Maaseh adif. Right? According to this Gemara, if Talmud maybe lidei maaseh, if I told you that, what is more important, Talmud or Maaseh? So Maaseh, the means to the end. So it sounds like the greater thing is the end. So how is it that we say about Chizkiah that not only he fulfilled, but he studied? Fulfilling is the ikar. So the Gemara answers, let's go with that. Then I'm going to get to your explanation in a moment. Let's go with that. So the Gemara answers, Lo kasha hala migmar hala agmure. There's a difference between studying and teaching. When we spoke about Chizkiah, we said not just that he fulfilled this book, but that he taught this book. That he was a teacher of the Torah. That he spread Torah. And of all the values, the highest value is what? Is teaching. Okay. Now, if we take this Gemara right over here, and I ask you, so according to the Gemara in Baba Kama, let's start with the Gemara in Baba Kama. What is the highest value? Teaching. What's the next value? Say again. Maaseh in Baba Kama is actually higher, right, exactly. Who said action? Sorry, I lost it. Yes, action. Thank you, Maaseh. And what's the lowest value? Study. Right? That's according to Rashi's explanation of the Gemara in Baba Kama. Right? You with me? The highest value is teaching. Then Maaseh is higher. Then study is the lowest in this Gemara. The problem is that the Gemara in Kedushin does not talk about teaching at all, right? It doesn't talk about teaching. But what does it say is higher, Maaseh or study? Study. And then comes Maaseh. So Tosfos asks, we have a steer in the Gemarot. What is more important? Is study more important? Or is Maaseh more important? If you look very carefully at this Gemara, there's actually a key switch in the way that this phrase is quoted. This key phrase. Anybody notice the switch? There's a key switch. Okay. Okay, so Glickman and Talmud, you're right, it does show here, but actually in all of the right Girsaot, it should be Talmud. I mean, this is how the Vilna Shas, I just quoted it from the Vilna Shas, the Bar Ilan, but the truth is that all of the manuscripts show Talmud. So it actually should be Talmud, but there's another flip. There's another, it's very subtle. Yeah.
It says in Kiddushin Talmud Gadol, but then in Baba Kama it says Gadol Talmud.
Right, so it's very interesting. If you look at the Gemara in Kiddushin, it says, Talmud Gadol, Talmud Mevi Lidei Maaseh. And in the context of the bigger question, it sounds like they're answering the question. They said, is it Talmud Gadol or Maaseh Gadol? I said, Talmud Gadol, Talmud Mevi Lidei Maaseh. So in the context of their question, Talmud is greater. But yet, in the Gemara in Baba Kama, when it quotes it, what does it say? Gadol Talmud. How great is study? That Talmud mevi lidei ma'aseh. Which does not mean that Talmud is greater than ma'aseh. It's just a statement about how great Talmud is. This actually might be the key to one of the perplexing questions that I ask myself about this Gemara in Kedushin, which is, if you think about it, everyone, it says, they ask a question, Talmud Gadol or Ma'aseh Gadol? And Rabbi Akiva says, I don't remember which one says which, but let's say Talmud Gadol. And Rabbi Tarfon says, Ma'aseh Gadol. And then it says, Nen Akulam Va'amru. They all answer at once and say, Talmud Gadol, Talmud Mevi Lidei Ma'aseh. And always I wondered, it was always like, it sounded like a musical. Like, how did they know to say that at the same time? Right, Talmud Gadol, Ma'aseh Gadol, and then the whole chorus gets up and says, Talmud Gadol, Talmud Mevi Lidei Ma'aseh. Now that's not a serious question that anyone else was going to ask. But I wonder, if that is a serious question, if this was a phrase that was known. There's something about Talmud Gadol or Gadol Talmud, this is a phrase that was known, so they're all able to answer at once. That could totally be off. But anyway, what emerges from this little switch of Gadol Talmud or Talmud Gadol is that this Gemara sounds like study is more important than Maisa, and this Gemara sounds like Maisa is more important than study. And this is the question that Tosfos raises in source number 5. He said, Perish b'kuntris, look at source number 5, Amamar Gadol Talmud Torah shemevi lidei ma'aseh. Perish b'kuntris, Alma ma'aseh adif. That's what Rashi explains. From here we see in this Gemara that Maseh is more important. V'kashal Rabbeinu Tam, and this is difficult for Rabbeinu Tam, the Adrabah, mehacha diek sof parakama dikadushin, Talmud Gadol mi Maseh, gabi zikenim she'emsum balit beinitza belud, v'nishra she'elazo b'fneim, Talmud Gadol Maseh Gadol, v'nimna kulam v'amru, Talmud Gadol she'mevi lidei Maseh. The very same phrase in Gemara and Kedushin taught the opposite conclusion. So how do you have the same phrase teach two opposite conclusions? And what is Tosfos' answer? Who said the answer before about, is that you, son? Your name is? Atara. So Tosfos answers what Atara said. Right? Tosfos says that the Gemara wasn't trying to say that Maseh is greater than Talmud. V'amar Rabbeinu Tam dahachi perusho. V'amar she'Talmud mevi lidei Maseh. V'kivan shanu omrim kiyem, harei anu omrim shalamad. Di lo shalamad heich kiyem, she'Talmud mevi lidei Maseh. V'lo Maseh gadaite hashta l'chalik ben lamad l'limed. Umeshani halag murei, vade lo amrinan, da vade adif shemevi etaram lidei Maseh k'shemalamdam. Okay? So it answers, Tosfos answers what Atara said, right? Which is, this Gemara isn't saying that Maisa is better than Talmud. What is the Gemara saying? That once you say that we fulfill the mitzvot, then Mamela, what do we know? That you studied it. So if we say by us that he fulfilled the mitzvah, that we fulfilled the mitzvah, we know we studied it. So it's not such a chidush to say about Chizkiah that he not only fulfilled, but he also learned. So according to Tosfos, actually the order is study and Maseh, and then it's parallel to Kedushin, and there's no question. Right? According to Tosfos, it's teach, study, and Maseh, but according to Rashi, it's actually teach Maseh and study. Okay? There's a third approach to understanding this Gemara. If we keep on reading, Ubeshiltot Rabbi Chai. In the Shiltot Rabbi Chai, there's a third approach. The Shiltot Rabbi Chai is a very important source. It's one of our first post-Talmudic sources, the Gaonic period, a Gaon in Eretz Yisrael, who writes, Lo garsinan kiyam arminan liyamei lo amrinan, el garas umanach tzulan v'hada amarlan v'su lo. Shiltot Rabbi Chai is a totally different perush in this Gemara. Now you notice when they ask Rabbi Yochanan the question, something funny happens. Right? What happened to Rabbi Yochanan? He asked him the question, he went to the restroom, he didn't answer the question until he washed his hands, made a bracha, put on his tefillin, and then he answered the question. So the Rav Achai says that was the point. Because what emerges from Rabbi Yochanan's response? What's more important? Maaseh. How do you know Maaseh is more important? Because Rabbi Yochanan had a choice. He could have answered the student question and done Talmud, or he could have done the Maaseh mitzvah of putting on tefillin. And what did he do first? He put on tefillin. And that was the issue. It had nothing to do with the Gemara, nothing to do with Chizkiah. They asked a question from Rabbi Yochanan. Uparach Gemara, v'heichu manach tefillin tchila kodem shaya amar lema shmaita, halo Talmud gadol mimaseh. How did Rabbi Yochanan put on tefillin before he gave the answer? Isn't Talmud more important? Umeshani hala migmar hala agmure. Listen carefully. Dila migmar nafshe Talmud gadol shemei v'lidei maseh aval agmure la'acherim lo adif leficha chay meniach tefillin tchila. Who got the answer? What is he saying? What is Rav Achai's answer? Yeah.
That it's a difference versus an individual. When you're doing something for yourself and it brings you to do the action, when you're teaching someone else, it's better that you do the action first because they're not. It's that you should do you should do the action first and then.
So according to Rav Achai, what's the top thing you should do?
Well, it depends on who it is. Is it the individual or is it like is it for yourself or are you doing it for others?
So the first thing it sounds like, Yafet, is study. Study. What's next? Maaseh. And what is on the bottom? Teaching. Meaning the reason why Rabbi Yochanan put on his tefillin before he answered his students is because Maaseh comes before teaching. Teaching's on the bottom. I don't tell this to the faculty. But teaching is very much on the bottom. Teaching is very much on the bottom. And that's why he first did the Maaseh before teach. So what you have over here basically is three different orders of priorities. Okay? For Rashi, it's teach, Maaseh, study. For Tosfos, it's teach, study, and Maaseh. And for Rav Achai, it's study, Maaseh, and teach. What do you think? What makes sense to you? You have three totally different approaches in terms of the priorities of the order. What makes sense to you? Yeah.
Well, Rav Achai's makes sense in terms of just like scale. Like if you start inward and going outward, like first you need to study in order to be able to act, and then you need to act in order to be able to branch out and teach.
Okay, so Rav Achai makes sense if we're going in chronological order. If we're not speaking axiologically, but chronologically, what is the order that people need to develop? The first thing they need to do is to study. Then they can do Maaseh, and then they can teach. Now this is actually one of the answers that Tosfos, I quoted on the other page for you, gives to the question of the stira between Kedushin and Baba Kama. He said, what comes first, teaching or Maaseh? And he answers, it depends what stage in life you're in. It depends what stage in life you're in. If you are someone who needs to learn, if you're in the beginning part of your learning career, then it's more important to focus on Talmud. Obviously, throughout your life, you have both Talmud and Maaseh are done. The question is, what do you accent? When you're in the growing part, when you're in the stage where you need to learn more and study more, that takes precedent. But then at some point, you switch. And Talmud is still there. It's always part of your life, and it has to be part of your life. But Maaseh attains greater priority. Now, it's interesting where people are with this, meaning it depends on, so according to Tosfot, it's actually Tosfot and Kedushin, it depends on what stage in life you're in. Could it depend on anything else? One is it depends what stage in life. Anything else could it depend on? Atara?
Probably the type of person you are. Not everyone is fit to teach.
The type of person you are. Not everyone's fit to teach, yes.
Maybe like location or context, like if you're in a place where like you're an extroverted person, so
That's great. Meaning it's not just the type of person you are, but your opportunities. And I would say / your responsibilities. Right? If you're the only person, that's a great example. So let me take both of them for a second. Let me start with the type of person. Your name is? Tiferet. So let me first start with the Tar, then we'll get to Tiferet. Maybe it depends what type of person you are. I remember when I was in YU, I had a lot of friends who did a lot of kiruv or chesed things. And I thought that was great. And I didn't. Now, it could be because they're much nicer people than I am, which is probably true. But I thought that I should spend my time in the Beit Midrash because that's what I needed in my growth. But they were in a different place, and thought that what was more important for them was something else. And it's very much dependent on what type of person that one is. Where are you going to focus your time at different points of your life? Meaning, if it's true that Tosfos is right at the beginning of your career, you're learning, and then later you're focused on Maseh, what about in this middle time? Like, where are we in college? Are we in the Talmud side or are we in the Maseh side? And I think different people answer it in different ways, depending on who they are. And maybe their chush, maybe their own sense of how am I going to be an Eved Hashem? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where do I see myself? So maybe it's good that there's a contradiction between Kedushin and Baba Kama. Because maybe it depends on, first of all, what stage you are in life, right? And Baba Kama is talking about Chizkiah, he's dead. So Ma'aseh might be more gadol. Baba Kama Kedushin could be talking about at the beginning of somebody's life. Or maybe it's talking about different types of people. Or maybe, what Tiferet just said, it's talking about different opportunities and responsibilities. Maybe what's determinative here is not just who you are and what stage in life, but where do you find yourself? Are you in a place that they need someone who is learned? That's what they need. That is what's needed in that era, in that time, in that place, in that location. Or they need somebody Maaseh. Meaning what determines our actions or our course of life isn't just who we are, at what stage we're in, but where we are. What Hashem wants from you might be different, depending on these questions. Any other thoughts about the order?
it might also depend on how you define better, like are you defining as an individual or as a community, which kind of touches upon the points that you just said. Like, is it about what's better for me and my own individual growth, or what is better for the community and the communal spiritual growth?
That's great. And that is touching on the last point, but in a different way. Because I said both sides community. Right? I was saying, what does the community need on either side? But you're pointing out that itself could be the tension. Let's say the individual is somebody who just wants to spend his time in the Beit Midrash, learning or teaching. And that's really all he or she wants to do. Is just to teach, to live a life in the Beit Midrash, to teach in Israel, wonderful, and then they make him come back to America to take a job doing ma'aseh. Maybe such a thing could happen. That could be too, the individual versus the community, and where a person is, and that tension that one feels. Yafeh. Other thoughts about, yeah.
Along those lines, I was thinking that Baba Kama definitely is making the community the emphasis. Like, it's more important as a community to have teachers and have actions than have like the individual study. So like in terms of like living with other people, like yeah, it would probably be more important to have teachers and have actions than have individuals just study.
Yafeh. So, and that adds the teaching part. You know, and that's one of the most striking things is Rav Achai, who says teaching is last. And all of the Baalei Ashkenaz, the Chachmei Ashkenaz, when they read that, they were up in arms. They said, how could teaching be last? Teaching is the most important because you're mezaka et harabim. Learning is yourself. But teaching, you're helping other people. You're mezak. What's more important than teaching? You're mezaka et harabim. Other thoughts? One other thing to think about, which, you know, I mentioned axiological versus chronological, but there's another question which is priority. In the case of Rabbi Yochanan, is a case where two things were placed in front of him. He could either answer his student's question or he could do a ma'aseh mitzvah. Now, how do you decide what to do when two things are in front of you? How do you decide what to do when two things are in front of you? What's the determining factor? Pick two things in front of you. Yeah?
Two different, it's either one that you choose which one is more important, or the second one could be that in terms of time, which one you're able to do later.
Yeah, fair. So there's a very important distinction between important and urgent. Right? Stephen Covey, in his 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, effective, okay, says, differentiates between the word important and urgent. And actually, when the Yerushalmi talks about this Gemara, it doesn't say what's gadol, it uses the word what's kodem. What is kodem might be different than what's gadol. So if you draw a mental box, or actually you don't have to because they supplied me with this wonderful whiteboard. So he draws this box. So you have a box. Okay? You have important, not important, urgent, not urgent. And he said, where should you spend most of your time? Should you spend most of your time in the important, urgent box? Things that are important and urgent, you should be spending your time? In the urgent but not important box? In the important but not urgent? Or the not important and the not urgent? Where should you spend most of your time? What would you say? Say again?
Important and urgent.
Important and urgent. Spend most of your time right here. Everybody agree or disagree? Tomorrow you agree? Okay. Yes? Anybody disagree? Because he disagrees. Yeah.
Important and not urgent because then you succeed in lifetime.
This is where you should spend your time. If you're spending your time in important and urgent, then you're always reacting. Right? You're always reacting, you're always pressed. The goal in life is actually to spend most of your time in what's important and not urgent. Because then you're planning and you're thinking ahead and you don't always need to react. Okay, this is a very difficult situation. You know, classically, like the phone. When the phone rings, the phone ringing is a classic case of something that is urgent. Right? I remember when I was in Israel, I was davening in a minyan, and the phone rang, and the guy answered in the middle of Shema. Now, what was amazing is he was the chazan. Okay? Why? Because the phone was ringing. Right? It's urgent. But is it more important? So we often respond to what's urgent. Did I mention this in Midrash and Moriah? I might have mentioned this. Did I say this, Pearl? I don't think so. we often respond to what's urgent, but we should be spending our time on what's important. And that could be the question of Talmud and Maaseh. When it comes to what's kodem, it could be different than what is gadol. What is kodem, if there's a maisa mitzvah that is passing, so that's more urgent to do. But that doesn't mean it's more important. It's one of the amazing things about Torah study. It could be the most important mitzvah, but it's also the most flexible. One of my Rebbeim likened it to if you have a glass and you fill it up with rocks. And you put the rock in of, the work time that you need. And the rock of the time that you spend with your family. And the rock of, I don't know what else is important in life. Let's say we do homework. And the rock of doing homework. And you put all these rocks in the glass and you have pebbles of different times, whatever. And then Torah is the water that you pour in that fills all the other spaces. Meaning, it's not doche, it doesn't push away anything else. It's just the opposite. But that doesn't make it less important. In fact, it could be more gadol. Okay, all of these are the case. Right? It depends who you are, what stage you are, where you are, what's urgent, what's important, whether you're mezake et rabim or not. All of these are factors in what we think about when we think about these key questions. And these are the key questions that we ask ourselves when we think about our core values. I'd say there are three core values: to study Torah, live Torah, and to spread Torah. We just began commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Rav. Rav Soloveitchik passed away 25 years ago in Chol HaMoed Pesach. Rav Soloveitchik for us is, of course, our spiritual, intellectual, educational father. And how important it is that in the 25th anniversary, that it's not just his students who are remembering, who knew him personally, but even I, who did not know him. I am the student of his students, telling you, the students of the students of the students, about Rabbi Soloveitchik, highlights his everlasting and profound impact on generations and generations. And these three values so much describe who he was and what was his philosophy. To study Torah was, of course, his life. Before I started at Yeshiva as the president, I started in June. My family was still living in Neve Daniel in Israel. And I was living on campus for 3 months. And I commuted to Neve Daniel. And I lived in the morgue dorm. Now, I am sure you're having a wonderful time in your experience in the dormitory here. But I can assure you that once you leave the dormitory after your college years, you will not expect to return. And let me just say that was quite a fascinating experience. To once again wake up and have mushroom pizza for breakfast, go to Golan at 12:30 at night for some shawarma with everyone else. My stomach has not recovered yet from that experience. But where I actually lived was in the Rav's apartment. The Rav had an apartment on the lobby on the morgue dorm. And that's where I lived. And I have to tell you, I was petrified. I remember the first day I was there. I landed, the Israel flight at like 5 in the morning. I was up all day working for YU. I came back like 12 o'clock at night. I went to bed, and I was like, I can't sleep. I didn't learn enough today. And then I got up and learned, and then I went back, and I'm like, I still didn't learn enough. It was like so intimidating. I remember there's a story that I actually told one of the Rav's children, because I heard the story, that the story is that when the Rav was in this apartment, somebody, one of the YU students, was playing music at like 3 in the morning. And the Rav put on his bathrobe, and he goes upstairs, and he bangs on the door and says, "It's 3 a.m. Don't you know people are learning?" So I told this to one of his children, and they said to me, "It's not true. The story's not true." I'm like, "How do you know it's not true?" So the Rav didn't have a bathrobe. So maybe he didn't have the bathrobe. But the point is, of course, that study 24 hours was certainly his life. But it's not just studying Torah, it's living Torah. And it's not just his life, which of course was Kiyeh Mashikatuv B'Sefer Hazeh, that he fulfilled what was written in this book. It wasn't just that, but what he taught. You know, one of his famous teachings is that when he came to America, he saw that people were Shomer Shabbos. They kept Shabbos. And he said, it's not enough just to keep Shabbos. Are you Shomer Erev Shabbos? Do you keep Erev Shabbos? Do you prepare with enthusiasm and excitement for Shabbos? Do you anticipate Shabbos? Do you think about Shabbos? He says in Europe, the Jews love Shabbos. Erev Shabbos was a hustle and bustle of excitement and joy. Yes, we keep Shabbat, we keep the mitzvot. But how do we keep the mitzvot? You know, one of my first experiences at YU in those 3 months is I was meeting all the different groups, and I went to meet the Mechina. And in the Mechina group, one person got up to speak and said that here in Mechina we learn that we don't keep Shabbos because we have to keep Shabbos. It's that we get to keep Shabbos. It's a gift. I said to them, you know, can you go tell everybody else that? Right? We forget about that. Certainly those of us who grew up with it. And it's a gift. That living a life of mitzvot is something that should bring us joy and happiness and exhilaration and excitement and meaning and purpose. It's not just doing the mitzvot. It's breathing the mitzvot. It's living the mitzvot. It's study Torah, it's live Torah. And certainly, it's spread Torah. When the Rav was asked to define himself, he said, I am a melamed. I'm a teacher. He's the great philosopher, the great thinker who integrated worlds, bridged, spanned fields that others couldn't even conceive of knowing, let alone integrating. I'm a melamed. I'm a teacher. For that is the highest aspiration. That teaching is, the Mazaket Rabbim is on top. And I think of this, the Rav as a melamed, as our quintessential melamed for Yeshiva University. When I think of him on this 25th anniversary of his passing, especially here on the Beren Campus in Stern College. Stern College, a place in which the Rav publicly began the movement to teach Gemara to the women in our community. The move which signaled the direction that we have since followed, in which we work to educate the women in our community with the highest level and highest intensity Jewish education. And this is the blessed era in which we live, when both our men and our women have the opportunity, both in Torah and in all pursuits, to maximize their potential and develop their God-given skills and abilities to become the kind of people that they were always destined to become. And this is what we do at Yeshiva University, and certainly what we do on the Beren Campus. And I have to tell you that one of my key goals, my personal goals, as I think about this year and our inaugural year of this administration, is to ensure that we increase the educational and Torah opportunities on the Beren Campus for our student body. And we do so for the benefit of you, for our students, but perhaps even more so, for the benefit of our entire community and the world at large. For we believe that our students here play a key role in the future of Jewish destiny. And I mean this on both a micro level and a macro level. On the micro level, our students here are charged with the mission to not just develop Torah knowledge, skills, and values, but to impart them as well. We want our students to leave here both able and inspired to transmit our Masorah, both privately in their homes and in the workplace, and publicly in the synagogues and the schools. We want to ensure that our students here have the will and the wherewithal to be the lay leaders and the spiritual leaders, to be the teachers of our community heading into our future, and that they will use all channels and all possible ways, that they'll be experts in all fields of knowledge, from halakha to Talmud, for Jewish philosophy to Tanakh, that they are given the skills and the abilities, that you are given the skills and the abilities to make a difference, not just for you, your families, your communities, but to the world. That's on a micro level. That's just speaking about Torah. But there's a macro level here. We live in the greatest era in Jewish history, certainly in the last 2,000 years, and arguably ever, and in perhaps the greatest era of world history as well. The Jewish people have seen the flourishing of a sovereign Jewish state in the land of Israel, the greatest Jewish project in 2 millennia. And we have entree like never before, whether in Israel or in the diaspora, to the global moral discourse. And for all humankind, science, medicine, and technology are progressing at an unparalleled pace, presenting both opportunities and challenges for the world of tomorrow. The confluence of the Jewish people's increased potential and visibility, and the astonishing developments across the world implicating the confluence of tradition and innovation mean that we have a window of opportunity to contribute to and even help shape the broader society. We've arrived at a moment in human history in which there is an unprecedented thirst for the wisdom that we have to contribute. And I have seen this personally myself. If you ask me what is the greatest surprise that I didn't expect when I became the president of Yeshiva University, it's the way that the rest of the world is rooting for our success. I remember here one of my first Shabbatot, forgot who said it right there, said that I said that I was rooting for you, and she said that we are rooting for me. And I quoted that at the investor speech. I thought that was such a touching comment. And that was. And the whole Jewish people are, and we could talk about that. You know, I'll just tell you one story about that. You know, one of the incredible things, another thing I didn't expect was athletics at Yeshiva University. When did we become so good? Our women's tennis team, our men's tennis team. You can applaud the women's tennis team. They deserve applause. Okay, our roller hockey team is in the national championship. They moved the national championship for Pesach because our roller hockey team, and of course the run and the basketball run of the Maccabees. Now, the enormous amount of enthusiasm and attention that this received on media, from media channels and social media channels, right? The enormous amount of attention received from people around the world. We received messages of support and congratulations from Jews around the world, Thailand, Singapore, South America. At the game, which was in York, Pennsylvania, not exactly one of the 5 towns, okay, people traveled 4 hours from New York to go to the game, some sitting right here. Traveled from Philadelphia, fans came from Philadelphia, fans came from Baltimore. Jews in York. The rabbi of the Reformed Temple in York brought his congregants to the game to cheer on his team, Yeshiva University. This is a crucial message to understand who we are. And this is what our players understood that when you play for Yeshiva University, you play for the Jewish people. Okay, that's who's rooting for our success. That I didn't expect, but I could have expected. What I didn't expect is the people not of our faith. I went to Salt Lake City a number of months ago to meet the president of Brigham Young University. And I went to Salt Lake City because I wanted to see an analog of another university that stood at the epicenter of a global movement. So when they heard I was coming, the president of Yeshiva University was coming, they asked if I'd also be interested in meeting with the apostles. So I said, well, I thought the apostles were dead, but if they're alive, I am certainly interested in meeting with them. The apostles is the highest ruling body of the Mormon Church. And they were interested in meeting me because they wanted to hear how Judaism deals with the challenges of rearing the rising generation. And I, as the president of Yeshiva University, represented the voice of Judaism. I've heard this from other Christians, other Christian leaders who've told me how important Yeshiva University is to succeed, because we want to hear the messages of Judaism in the world. Even more surprisingly, perhaps, representatives from Morocco, Bahrain, and even Riyadh have contacted Yeshiva University. For in their eyes, we are the Judaic voice in the global conversation. And we have an opportunity today to speak and be heard in ways like perhaps no other in our history. Our obligation, what I have called Torah Tzion, to redeem the world and move history forward, is achievable today in ways that were unimaginable even several decades ago, let alone several centuries ago. We are in a position to infuse our positive Jewish values into the broader society and contribute to the global moral conversation in ways about which our ancestors could only dream. And this is not just about teaching Torah in the narrow sense of the term, about formal frontal lecturing. This is about spreading our values throughout the world in its widest sense. This is about the professions we pursue, the public posture we adopt, and the leadership we assume, whether in the workplace or the marketplace of public opinion. This is about studying Torah, living Torah, and spreading Torah in the broadest possible sense, in every field, not only in Torah, but in tech, in finance, in law, in medicine, and the health fields. We have the opportunity to make a difference, to model in both word and deed the values for which we stand, not only for our individual communities, but for the entire Jewish people, as well as society at large. The existence of these opportunities, and more importantly, our obligation to pursue them, is fitting to talk about during this time as we prepare for the holiday of Pesach. For this is part and parcel, a deeper understanding of what the holiday of Pesach is all about. As is well known, the theme of the Seder is redemption. It begins by telling a story of a single discrete nation's emergence from Mesopotamian obscurity to its enslavements in Egypt to its salvation at the hands of God. The first half of the Seder concerns the redemption of the Jewish people. But then a conceptual shift occurs. After the Magid, we then eat the meal and we bench and we begin to read passages proclaiming Kol Ma'asecha Ya'alucha Hashem Elokeinu Ki L'Yom Chasto L'Chol Basar Notein Lechem Nishmat Kol Chai. Suddenly we find ourselves anticipating and yearning for the redemption not only of the Jewish people, but the entire world. The beginning of the Seder, the first half, is all about the past Geula. Everything before Shulchan Aruch is the past Geula. But afterwards, we begin talking about the future Geula. That's when we open the door for Eliyahu Hanavi. We talk about the Geula Atidah. For so much of Jewish history, we were living betwixt and between, in the middle of the Seder. We finished the Geula of Mitzrayim, but we were not yet experiencing the Geula of the future. This was not by design, but because this was the reality foisted upon us by history. But in this wondrous era, when we can glimpse the miraculous with our very own eyes, we can finally envision ourselves moving towards the second half of the Seder. We as a people can look forward with more confidence than ever before to the redemption of the Jewish people. And we as a global movement can contribute as never before to the redemption, not just of the Jewish people, but nishmat kol chai, to all of humanity. And this macro perspective has deep implications for Yeshiva University in general and for the students in the Beren Campus in particular. In a rapidly changing world, we want to prepare you for great success and enable you to contribute to pushing history forward. We'll be leaning into all the areas that maximize your potential in this respect, from women in tech to finance to Torah and beyond. This is a great moment of opportunity for us, and we will work to capitalize on it. If we are to study Torah, live Torah, and spread Torah, not just in the narrow sense, but in the broadest possible sense, then we must commit ourselves to this very effort. We owe it to ourselves, our community, to the entire Jewish people, and all of humanity to do no less. That is our mission. When you leave this place, you should leave this place on a mission. Who said it depends where you are? Tiferet? We're in a new place. There's a new location. There are new responsibilities and new obligations on us. Obligations and responsibilities to the state of Israel. Obligations and responsibilities to the Jewish people. And I would argue, obligations and responsibilities to the world. And you will learn much Torah. And you will be prepared to live a life of ma'asim tovim. But we want to be mezakeh et rabbim. We want to teach. In the narrow sense, in the broad sense, we want to be out there. And we want to teach our students and inspire our students to live a life on a mission to contribute to the Jewish people and to the world. This is a great journey. And I look forward to continuing this great journey together with you. Thank you so much.